Now as I was young and easy under the apple boughs about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry, time let me hail and climb golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time, I, lordly, had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light.
May your hands always be busy. May your feet always be swift. May you have a firm foundation when the winds of changes shift. May your heart always be joyful. Your songs always be sung. May you stay forever young. Forever young.
As I was green and carefree, famous among the barns about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me play and be golden in the mercy of his means. And green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn. The foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams.
May you grow up to be righteous. May you grow up to be true. May you always know the truth about the light surrounding you. May you build a ladder to the stars, climb on every rung. May you stay forever young. Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young.
All the sun long it was running, it was lovely, the hay fields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys, it was air and playing, lovely and watery and fire green as grass.
Forever young. Forever young. May you stay forever young.
Nothing I cared in the lamb-white days, that time would take me up to the swallow-thronged loft by the shadow of my hand, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea.
Forever young. Forever
Taelen Thomas was born in Swansea, South Wales, in 1914, and his father, a schoolmaster, named him Dylan. As far as we know, nobody else had been named that, except for a character in an ancient Welsh epic called the Mabinogion. In a scene in which a wizard was trying to seduce a virgin and she wouldn't cooperate, he dared her to jump over his wand. The virgin jumped over the wand, and as soon as she did, out came a baby, right out of her. And it was a baby with curly golden hair, a beautiful baby who ran into the ocean and soon was swimming faster than the fishes. The baby's name was Dylan, which means son of a sea wave. Son of a sea wave.
Bob Dylan ran away from home for the first time at the tender age of 10. He ran away again at 12, ran away twice at 13, and got out for good at 14. He worked as a carny. He hopped freight trains. He lived with hobos. At 15, he learned to play the piano on a riverboat. Bob Dylan's childhood was a fantastic ride.
Except that none of this was true. His autobiography and his own name were his first two works of fiction. Robert Zimmerman was raised in Hibbing, Minnesota, in one house with two parents. He never ran away. He did his chores. He went to school. He studied for his bar mitzvah, and he was a good boy, mostly a good boy trying to play piano like Little Richard and trying to get some street cred by telling whoppers.
When people asked why he picked the name Bob Dylan, he explained, "Oh, I had an uncle named Dylan." Or I used it there was an outlaw that was hanged named Dylan. Or I copped it from Marshal Matt Dillon. The stories varied, but one thing he was certain about, he was not named for that poet guy, Taelen Thomas.
Contradictory evidence is provided by Echo Star Hellstrom, Bobby Zimmerman's first serious girlfriend in 1958. Here's what Echo Hellstrom remembers.
Zimbo drove up in his blue Ford convertible. He was excited. He said,
"I've got my name. I know what my name's going to be. Bob Dylan."
I asked, "You mean like Dillon, like that Matt Dillon guy?"
No, like this, Dyllan.
Bob had a book in his hand, and he showed it to me. It was a book of poems by that Welsh poet, Taelen Thomas.
I wonder, was Echo Star Hellstrom the girl from the North Country?
2, 3, 4. Well, if you're going to the North Country Fair, where the wind hits heavy on the borderline, remember me to one who lives there. She once was a true love of mine. And if you get there, when the snowflakes fall, when the rivers freeze and summer ends, see for me, she has a coat so warm to keep her from the howling wind. If it curls and flows all down her breast, see for me if her hair's hanging long. That's the way I put my guns in the ground. I can't shoot them anymore. Long black cloud, it's a hanging down. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door.
And death shall have no dominion. Dead men naked, they shall be one with the man in the wind and the west moon. When their bones are picked clean, and the clean bones gone, they shall have stars at elbow and foot. Though they go mad, they shall be sane. Though they sink through the sea, they shall rise again. Though lovers be lost, love shall not, and death shall have no dominion.
Mama, take this badge off of me. I don't need it anymore. It's getting dark, too dark to see. Feel like I'm knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, 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 knocking on heaven's door.
And death shall have no dominion. No more may gulls cry at their ears, or waves break loud on the seashore. Where blew a flower, may a flower no more lift its face to the blows of the rain. Though they be mad and dead as nails, heads of the characters hammer through daisies, break in the sun till the sun breaks down, and death shall have no dominion.
Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door. Knock, knock, knocking on heaven's door.
Do not go gentle into that good night. Old age should burn and rave at close of day. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light. Rage against the dying of the light, or just rage against a woman who has dumped you?
You've got a lot of nerve to say you are my friend. When I was down, you just stood there grinning. You've got got a helping hand to lend. You just want to be on the side that's winning. You see me on the street, you always act surprised. Say, how are you? Good luck, but you don't mean it. When you know as well as me, you'd rather see me paralyzed. Why don't you just come out once screaming?
Alone in the hissing laboratory of his wishes, Mr. Dylan minces among bats and Jeroboams, tiptoes through spinneys of murdering herbs, agony dancing through his crucibles, and mixes, especially for this woman, a venomous porridge unknown to toxicologists, which will scald and viper through her until her ears fall off like figs, her toes grow big and black as balloons, and steam comes screaming out of her navel.
I wish for just one time you could stand inside my shoes. Just for that one moment, I could be you. I wish for just one time you could stand inside my shoes. You know what a drag it is to see you.
Taelen Thomas came to Carmel in 1950. He was on a tour of universities and theaters, over 40 of them, and there was a Taelen Thomas Pony Express that hauled him from university to university with different drivers, universities to theaters to colleges again. Whew, 40 shows in a few weeks. But throughout America, he was enjoying, as he put it, the barrier of a common language. Since he was from Wales, people asked him, "Mr. Thomas, do you speak Welsh?" "No. I speak only 3 languages, English, BBC, and saloon." While he was delivering programs in Berkeley and San Francisco, he was invited to come down to Carmel. He was driven down the south coast to Carmel, on through all the way down to Esalen, and on the way back he visited briefly Henry Miller, whom he woke up from a nap, and then he came on up to Carmel Valley Road to the estate of Noel Sullivan, now Carmel Valley Manor. And a lunch was planned so that Dylan could meet the great Robinson Jeffers, a great friend of Sullivan's. So the lunch started off rather oddly, because neither Robinson Jeffers nor Taelen Thomas said a word. They continued not speaking. After lunch, the host recommended that the 2 poets go out into the garden, enjoy the garden. They went out there for nearly 2 hours, and then Robinson Jeffers walked through, got into his car, and apparently went home. After a while, Taelen Thomas came back into the house out of the garden, smiling. And people said, "Well, how was it? How did it go? What did you say?" He said, "It was perfect. Neither of us said a word." 2 years later, on another tour, Dylan Thomas came to Carmel and this time stayed at the home of Maria Short, which is right near what was then the Sunset School. And Maria Short had arranged for a supper with Robinson Jeffers and various other luminaries of Carmel, and her plan was that Dylan Thomas would sing for his supper after he had eaten it. Thomas was traveling this time with his wife, Taelen, a modern dancer of the Isadora Duncan School, and she was with him at dinner, and the dinner went along with Dylan Thomas and Robinson Jeffers saying just about nothing. After dinner, Taelen said, "And now we'll have some bloody poetry." She got up and scampered away. Dylan fired a biscuit at her back, smacked her between the shoulder blades. She went into the bedroom, and he charged on into the bedroom, and the sounds that came out of the bedroom then were miscellaneously identified as wrestling, Welsh lovemaking, or perhaps a hockey game. They did not emerge until late the next morning, both smiling.
In 1963, Bob Dylan came to Monterey to play at the folk festival as the opening act. He was 22 years old, not very well known, and as a performer, he received mixed reviews. The audience that came to hear the sweet sounds of Joan Baez and Peter, Paul, and Mary did not all warm up to Dylan's growl.
But as a songwriter, Bob Dylan was hitting his stride. His new album contained Blowing in the Wind, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, Masters of War, and Hard Rain, all written in the last few months, and he was writing new songs almost every day.
When the folk festival ended, Joan Baez started up her Jaguar XKE. Bob jumped in, and they drove to her place in the Carmel Highlands on Corona Road. They hung out for a few days and got better acquainted. And Joan urged Bob to write more political protest songs while Bob urged Joan to lighten up.
Later that year, Bob came back to Carmel Highlands, moved in with Joan, and set up his portable Smith Corona in the kitchen. He pounded on that typewriter all day long, pausing only to flirt with Joan's little sister, Mimi.
One night, Bob and Joan went out to dinner in Carmel Valley at Fox Hills, where Bernardus Lodge is now. But they were turned away by the maitre d' because they were too scruffy. Bob was furious, and when they got back to the Highlands, he immediately went to work on a new song, The Sting of Rejection, The Smell of the Ocean, and A Taste for Revenge.
2, 3, 4. Oh, the time will come up when the wind will stop and the breeze will cease to be breathing, like the stillness in the wind before the hurricane begins, the hour that the ship comes in, and the seas will split and the ship it will hit, and the sands on the shoreline will be shaking, and the tide will sound and the waves will pound, and the morning will be breaking.
Sails drink the wind, and white as milk he speeds into the drinking dark. The sun shipwrecks west on a pearl, and the moon swims out of its hulk.
Oh, the fishes will laugh as they swim out of the path, and the seagulls, they'll be smiling, and the rocks on the stand will proudly stand the hour that the ship comes in, and the words that are used for to get the ship confused will not be understood as they're spoken, for the chains of the sea will have busted in the night and be buried on the bottom of the ocean.
Always good luck, bird after dark, and the laughing fish. As the sails drink up the hail of thunder, and the long-tailed lightning lights the waves, The boat swims into the 6-year weather. The wind throws a shadow and it freezes fast. The boat skims on with drinking wings. His decks are drenched with miracles.
Oh, the foes will rise with the sleep still in their eyes, and they'll jerk from their beds and think they're dreaming, and they'll pinch themselves and squeal, and they'll know that it's for real the hour that the ship comes in. And they'll raise their hands, say we'll meet all your demands, but we'll shout from the bow, your days are numbered. Like Pharaoh's tribe, they'll be drowned in the tide. Like Goliath, they'll be conquered.
And the next day, Bob woke up, read a story in the newspaper, and wrote another song.
Williams and Zinger killed poor Hattie Carroll with a cane that he twirled on his diamond ring finger at a Baltimore hotel society gathering, and the cops was called in and his weapon took from him. And you who philosophize disgrace and criticize all fear, take the rag away from your face. Now ain't the time for your tears.
Taelen Thomas used to say, I enjoy it very much, people telling me about their childhood. But they'll have to be quick about it or I'll be telling them about mine. Years and years and years ago, when there were wolves in Wales and birds the color of red flannel petticoats whisked past the harp-shaped hills, and we sang and wallowed all night and day in caves. His biographers had a more prosaic way of dealing with his childhood, saying that Taelen Thomas, as a little boy in Wales, was at large most of the time, unsupervised most all of the time, running and romping about in the parks and along the beaches and at Fern Hill, the farm of his Aunt Ann Jones. When he was at home, his mother taught him Mother Goose, and his father taught him Shakespeare. And when he was 7 years old, he went to school down the hill to Mrs. Isabel Hall's school, wearing a red and blue blazer. Little Dylan took his place in an all-purpose ground floor classroom arranged in a series of long, hard benches with girls at the front and boys behind. Reading aloud meant group recitation, which Dylan hated. Chanting a poem in unison one afternoon, he put his hands over his ears and burst out, I can't stand it! I can't stand it! Mrs. Isabel Hall was a kind enough person to allow the pupils henceforth to recite poems of their own choice, one at a time. Standing along Mrs. Hall, the 7-year-old Dylan announced he was going to do my grave poem and started to intone. Let's talk of graves, of worms. Let dust be our paper, and with rainy eyes mark sorrow on the bosom of the earth. He ended in stunned silence. The children had no way of knowing he was reciting Shakespeare's Richard II, but they could not help being affected by the sadness of the words and the delivery. Declaiming poetry introduced young Dylan to one pleasure he never tired of, the sound of his own voice.
It is said that old age and treachery will overcome youth and skill. But not always. Poets and theoretical physicists do their best work when they're young. Einstein, Newton, and Heisenberg were all in their 20s when they made their most important discoveries. Taelen Thomas, from ages 16 to 21, writes half of his poems and most of the best ones. Bob Dylan wrote many of his best songs from age 20 to 24, and he wrote at an incredible pace. In the span of 1 year, he wrote the songs for Bringing It All Back Home, Highway 61 Revisited, Blonde on Blonde.
And we see the intersection of physics and poetry again as the new technology of radio touches the lives of both Dylans. Taelen Thomas read his poetry on the radio for the BBC. The closest thing he ever had to a regular job was writing, producing, and acting in radio plays for the BBC. He originally wrote A Child's Christmas in Wales for the radio, and when he read an expanded version of it in America, the transcript was published, and this became his most popular work of prose.
For young Bob Dylan, dialing in the radio and listening to the radio was his introduction to the world of American songs. Dylan's father ran a hardware store, so there was always a radio at home. In the daytime, Bob listened to the local AM stations playing the bland pop music of Perry Como and Rosemary Clooney. Nothing too exciting. But at night, when the local stations went quiet, other worlds opened up.
At night, if he turned the radio dial slowly and he listened very carefully, he could bring in stations from 1,000 miles away. At night, radio stations from Chicago, Memphis, and Shreveport boosted their wattage until their signals bounced off the ionosphere and came down in Hibbing on the skip. At night, he could hear the twang of the Texas Panhandle, the groans of the Mississippi Delta, the old, old sounds of the Appalachia.
Dylan caught it all on the skip, and he soaked it all in. Hank Williams, Fats Domino, the Carter Family, Little Richard, the whole gumbo. 2, 3, 4. While riding on a train going west, I fell asleep for to take my rest. I dreamed a dream, it made me sad, concerning myself and the first few friends I had. With half damp eyes I stared into the room where my friends and I spent many an afternoon, where we together weathered many a storm, talking and joking till the early hours of the morn. Old wooden stove where our hats were hung, our tales were told and our songs were sung. Choices were few and the thought never hid that the one road we traveled would ever shatter and split.
Taelen Thomas recalled in Portrait of the Artist as a Young Dog that when he was 14 years old, he went to his friend Dan Jenkins for supper. Mr. Jenkin, Mrs. Jenkin, and the Reverend Bevan were seated at the table. Mr. Bevan said grace. When he stood up, it was just as though he were still sitting down. He was so short. Bless our repast this evening, he said, as though he didn't like food at all. But once our man was over, he went at the cold meat like a dog. Mrs. Bevan didn't look all there. She stared at the tablecloth and made hesitant movements with her knife and fork. She appeared to be wondering which to cut up first, the meat or the cloth. Dan and I stared at her with delight. He kicked me under the table and I spilt the salt. In the commotion, I managed to put some vinegar on his bread. Mrs. Jenkins said, while everyone except Mr. Bevan was watching Mrs. Bevan move her knife back and forth slowly along the edge of her plate. I do hope you like cold lamb. Mrs. Bevan smiled at her, assured, and began to eat. She was gray-haired and gray-faced. Perhaps she was gray all over. I tried to undress her, but my mind grew frightened. When it came to her short flannel petticoat and navy bloomers to the knees, I could not even dare to unbutton her tall boots to see how gray her legs were. She looked up from her plate and gave me a wicked smile. Blushing, I turned to answer Mr. Jenkins, who was asking me how old I was. I told him, but added 1 year. Why did I lie then, I wondered. If I lost my cap and found it in my bedroom, and my mother asked me where I'd found it, I would say, in the attic or under the hall stand. It was exciting to have to keep wary all the time, in case I contradicted myself. 15 3/4, said Mr. Jenkins. That's a very exact age. I see we have a mathematician with us. Would you like to borrow an arithmetic book? Oh, I'd like it very much, I said in my best voice. I despised arithmetic, but I wanted to come to the house again. This was better than home, and there was a woman off her head, too. Mr. Jenkins showed me the arithmetic book, and I thanked him grandly. It was almost as good being a hypocrite as being a liar. Made you warm and shameful.
I wish in vain we could sit simply in that room once again. $10,000 at the drop of a hat. I'd give it all gladly if my life could be like that.
Taelen Thomas was in London in the 1940s when London was being bombed by the Nazis. And he wrote, "Among those killed in the dawn raids was a man aged 100. When the morning was waking over the war, he put on his clothes and stepped out and he died. The locks yawned loose and blasts blew them wide. He dropped where he loved on the burst pavement stones and the funeral grains of the slaughtered floor. Tell the street on its back he stopped the sun, and the craters of his eyes grew spring shoots and fire when all the keys shot from the locks and rang.
Come, you masters of war, you that build all the guns, you that build the death planes, you that build the big bombs, you that hide behind walls, you that hide behind desks. I just want you to know I can see through your mask.
The hand that signed the paper felled a city. 5 sovereign fingers taxed the breath, doubled the globe of dead and cut a country in half. These 5 kings did a king to death.
You that fasten the trigger for others to fire, then you sit back and watch as the death count gets higher. You that hide in your mansion while young people's blood pours out of their bodies and is buried in
The mighty hand leads to a sloping shoulder. The fingered joints are cramped with chalk. A goose's quill has started murder and put an end to talk.
Let me ask you one question. Is your money that good? Would it buy you forgiveness? Do you think that it could? Well, there's one thing I know. When your debt takes its toll, all the money you made will never buy back your soul.
Great is the hand that holds dominion over man by a scribbled name. The 5 kings count the dead, but do not soften the crusted wound, nor stroke the brow.
And I hope that you die, and your death will come soon. And I'll follow your casket in the pale afternoon. And I'll watch as you're lowered down to your deathbed. And I'll stand over your grave till I'm sure that you're dead. Come, you masters of war. Come, you masters of war. Come, you masters of war. Come, you masters of war.
The bells drink up the hail of thunder. The statues of great rain stand still and the flakes fall like hills. A wind throws a shadow and it freezes fast. The long-tailed lightning lights the night, and we gaze upon the chimes of freedom flashing.
Far between sundown's finish and midnight's broken toll, we ducked inside the doorway, thunder crashing, as majestic bells of gold struck shadows in the sound, seeming to be the chimes of freedom flashing. Flashing for the warrior whose strength is not to fight. Flashing for the refugee on their unarmed road of flight. And for each and every underdog, a soldier in the night. As we gaze upon the chimes of freedom flashing. As we gazed upon the chimes of freedom flashing.
With your mercury mouth in the missionary times, and your eyes like smoke, and your prayers like rhymes, and your silver cross and your voice like chimes, oh, who among them do they think could bury you? With your streetcar visions which you place on the grass, and your flesh like silk and your face like glass, who among them do they think could carry you? With your silhouette when the sunlight dims into your eyes where the moonlight swims, and your matchbook psalms and your gypsy hymns, oh, who among them would try to impress you? With your childhood flames on your midnight rug, and your Spanish manners and your mother's drugs, and your cowboy mouth, and your curfew thugs, who among them do they think could resist you? The dreams of pigs.
All the tired horses in the sun, how we gonna get any riding done?
The sunny, slow, lolling afternoon yawns and moons through the dozy farm. Clouds sag and pillow on the hill.
All the tired horses in the sun, how we gonna get any riding done?
Pigs grunt in a wet wallow bath and smile as they snort and dream. They dream of the acorn swill of the world, the rooting of pig fruit, the bagpipe tugs of the mother sow, the squeal and snuffle of yeses of the women pigs in rut.
All the tired horses in the sun, how we gonna get any riding done?
They mud bask and snout in the pig-loving sun. Their tails curl. They rollick and slobber and snore to deep, smug, after-swill sleep.
All the tired horses in the sun, how we gonna get any riding done? They sat together in the park as the evening sky grew dark. He looked at her and he felt a spark tingle to his bones. Then he felt alone and wished he'd gone straight and watched out for a simple twist of fate.
The sky is torn across this ragged anniversary of two who moved for 3 years in tune down the long walks of their vows.
Along by the old canal, little confused, I remember well. Checked into a strange hotel with the neon burning bright. Felt the heat of the night hit like a freight train move with a simple twist of fate.
Now their love lies a loss, and love and his patience roar on a chain. From every true or crater-carrying cloud, death strikes their house.
Up, the room was bare. He didn't see her anywhere. Told himself he didn't care and pushed the window open wide. Felt that emptiness inside to which he just could not relate. Brought on a simple twist of fate.
Too late in the wrong rain, they come together whom their love parted. The windows pour into their heart and the doors burn in their brains.
A saxophone somewhere far off played. She was walking on down by the arcade. The light burst through a beat-up shade where he was waking up. She dropped a coin into the cup of a blind man at the gate and forgot about the simple twist of fate.
Taelen Thomas loved an audience. I sing not for the strut and trade of charms on the ivory stages, but for the lovers, their arms round the griefs of the ages. At poor peace I sing to you strangers, though song is a burning and crested act, the fire of birds in the world's turning wood, as I hack this rumpus of shapes for you to know glory. Hark, I trumpet the place, I build my bellowing ark to the best of my love. As the flood begins, I sing to you strangers, I love you, audience.
Bob Dylan, not so much.
Take me disappearing through the smoke rings of my mind, down the foggy ruins of time, far past the frozen leaf, the haunted, frightened tree, out to the windy beach, far from the twisted reach of crazy sun. Yes, to dance beneath the diamond sky with one hand waving free, silhouetted by the sea, circled by the circus sands, with all memory and fate driven deep beneath the weight. Let me forget about today until tomorrow. Take me for a trip upon your magic swirling ship. My senses have been stripped, my toes too numb to step. Wait only for my boot heels to be wandering. I'm ready to go anywhere. I'm ready for to fade unto my own parade. Cast your dancing spell my way. I promise to go on.
Junkyard Angel.
2, 3, 4. She's a junkyard angel. She always brings me bread. And if I go down, dying, you know, she's bound to put a blanket on my bed. Steam shovel, mama, to unload my head. And I need a dump truck, mama, to feed my bread. She gives me everything and more, and like I said, if I go down dying, you know, she's bound to put a blanket on my bed.
At the bridge of log across Bufflehead Bog, I saw the girl. In sapphire arenas of the hills, she gave me a whirl. And if I howl on top of the hill, if you don't hear it, you know my baby will.
Well, I ride a mail train, babe, and I can't buy the thrill. I've been up all night, I've been leaning on my windowsill. Well, if I die on top of the hill, if I don't make it, you know my baby will. Don't the moon look good, mama, shining through the trees? And don't the brakeman look good, flagging down the double E? And don't the sun look good, going down into the sea? Don't my gal look fine when she's coming after me? Time is coming, windows are filled with frost. I wanted to tell everybody, but I could not get it across. Well, I want to be your lover, babe, I don't want to be your boss. Don't say I never warned you when your train gets lost. So I ride a mail train, babe, and I can't buy a thrill. I've been up all night, I've been leaning on my windowsill. Well, if I die on top of the hill, if I don't make it, my baby will. If I don't make it, you know my baby will. If I don't make it, you know my baby will.
When I was a windy boy and a bit, and the black spit of the chapel fold, on seesaw Sunday nights I wooed whoever I would with my wicked eyes. The whole of the moon I could love and leave. When I was a gusty man and a half, not a boy and a bit in the wick-dipping moon, and drunk as a new-dropped calf, I whistled all night in the twisted flues. Midwives grew in the midnight ditches, and the sizzling beds of the town cried quick whenever I dove in a breast-high shoal, wherever I romped in the clover quilts, wheresoever I did in the cold black night, I left my quivering prints.
Shut the light, shut the shade. You don't have to be afraid, because I'll be your baby tonight.
When I was a man you could call a man, brandy and ripe in my bright bass prime, no spring-tailed Tom in the red-hot town, with every simmering woman his mouse, but a hillocky bull in the swelter of summer, come in his great good time to the sultry biding herds.
Well, that mockingbird's gonna sail away. We're gonna let it. Big fat moon gonna shine like a spoon. We're gonna let it, baby. You won't regret it. Kick your shoes off. Do not fear. Bring that bottle on over here. Because I'll be your baby tonight.
If I had the stars of the darkest night and the diamonds from the deepest ocean, I'd forsake them all for your sweet kiss. That's all I'm wishing to be owning. Ah, Rosie, you asked me what seas I saw in my seafaring days. I'll tell you no lies. The only sea I saw was the seesaw sea, with you riding on it. Lie down, lie easy, let me shipwreck in your thighs.
Because I'll be your baby tonight. When you're lost in the rain in Juarez, and it's Easter time too, Don't you put on any airs when you're down on Rue Morgue Avenue. They got some hungry women there and they really make a mess out of you.
In 1953, on his fourth speaking tour in America, Taelen Thomas saw his masterpiece play for words, for voices, under Milkwood, put up to brilliant performance and acclaim in New York City. And he was also starting to collaborate with his friend Stravinsky on an opera. And in celebration, he went to the White Horse Tavern, where instead of drinking his usual beer, he drank, so they said, 18 shots of whiskey.
I started out in Burgundy, but I soon hit the hardest stuff. Everybody said they'd stand behind me when the game got rough. Ah, but the joke was on me. There wasn't even anybody there to bluff. I'm going back to New York City. I do believe I've had enough.
Taelen Thomas made it back to his room in the Chelsea Hotel, where he went into a coma. He was taken to St. Vincent's Hospital, and one of the nurses later reported that just before he died, Taelen came out of his coma and looked up at the faces of a couple of grim and sad friends and 3 grim-faced doctors looking down on him, and he said, "In my country, the men have their arms around each other and they are singing.
If you see St. Annie, please tell her thanks a lot. I cannot move and my fingers are all in a knot. I just haven't got the strength to get up and take another shot. And my best friend, my doctor, won't even tell me what it is I got."
Back on his 35th birthday, 4 years before he died, Taelen Thomas said, "I count my blessings aloud, 4 elements and 5 senses, and man a spirit in love. And this one last blessing most, that the closer I move to death, the louder the sun blooms and the ramshackling sea exults."
So when you're lost in the rain in Warren, and it's Easter time too, and your gravity fails and negativity don't pull you through, don't you put on any airs when you're down on Rue Morgue Avenue. They got some hungry women there and they really make a mess out of you. They got some hungry women there and they really make a mess out of you.
Now as I was young and easy under the apple boughs, about the lilting house, happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry. Time let me hail and climb golden in the heydays of his eyes. And honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time, I, lordly, had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light.
May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do for others, let others do for you. Don't you build a ladder to the stars, climb on every rung. May you stay
Was there a time when dancers with their fiddles in children's circuses could stay their troubles? A spring full of larks in a rolling cloud, and the roadside bushes brimming with whistling on the hill's shoulder, where a boy in the listening summertime of the dead whispers the truth of his joy to the trees and the stones and the fish in the tide. What's never known is safest in this life. What's never known is safest in this life.
2, 3, 4. Well, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, if you don't know by now. It ain't no use to sit and wonder why, babe, it'll never do somehow. When your rooster crows at the break of dawn, look out your window, I'll be gone. You're the reason I'm traveling on. Oh, don't think twice, it's alright. Ain't no use in turning on your lights, babe, the light I never know. And it ain't no use in turning on your light, babe, I'm on the dark side of the road. I'm a-thinking and a-wondering all the way down the road. I once loved a woman, child, I'm told. I gave her my heart, she wanted my soul. Oh, don't think twice, it's alright. I'm walking down that long, lonesome road, babe. Where I'm bound, I can't tell. But goodbye is too good a word, babe, so I'll just say fairly well. I ain't saying you treated me unkind, could have done better, I don't mind. Just kind of have wasted my precious time. Oh, don't think twice, it's alright. Don't think twice, it's alright. Thank you very much. Thank you.